Hi there, my name is Fernando. Today we're going to be doing an oxidative lift. I know I could hardly pronounce it and I had no idea what it was at first. But in layman's terms, it simply means using permanent hair color as a lifting tool versus its most common role of gray coverage or tone on tone or going darker. It's an awesome tool because it gives you more predictable results. Not only that, you have complete control of the situation through the entire process. It's a really good tool for those new clients that want a little bit of lightness or dimension, but are kind of scared of bleach. Now, full disclosure here, this method can only be done on virgin hair. Now, before you go out there and say there's no humans with virgin hair anymore, that is a lie. There's still a lot of people that just want a little bit of brightness and kind of are hesitant to go the bleach route. It's another way for you to reintroduce the word light. Take, for example, my client, Jennifer, behind me. She wants to be a little bit brighter, but she is traumatized with what bleach had done to her hair in the past. This is a good alternative for me not to think lightness as a highlight, but lightness as a contrast. So this technique can guide you to see the differences between bleach and using permanent hair color. We're using Majorel today because of its dependable balance. It allows us to really lift the hair and deposit at the same time to have a more controlled and predictable result at the very end. So let's go ahead and get started on this. All right, we're gonna get to mixing. I'm using the Majorel line, which is a very dependable line. The new formulation still has a great power, but this time it's a little bit creamier. I like the natural series because it is a very well balanced formula. Especially doing a oxidative lift, you need that reliability on those colors. So I'm going to be using 7N of the natural series, and I'm actually going to be inserting gold. We're going to be going from a level 5 to a level 7. And if you see, we need to reread this a little bit different. We usually have our highlight mentality where we always have to combat the colors. With permanent color, it's a more controlled, more predictable outcome. So in this case, since we're going to a level 7, there might be a little bit of orange hues there. So that's where I'm using a gold to diminish a little bit that underlying pigment and really rely on the natural series, that blue, that red, that yellow, to actually create that brown with a mix of that gold, have a more natural look. So we're going from a primary to a secondary and actually creating that tertiary color. Now I'm using only 20 volume developer because it's going to take me to those two levels of lift. I don't want anything more powerful than that. So I'm going to be doing the formula where I use N grams of N and about 15 to 20 grams of that gold. What it does, we are lifting that, we're inserting those naturals, and that pigment is being diluted. That underlying pigment is just diluting a little bit with that gold, that iridescence. So I really like how the formula is just a little bit more creamier. So you see, it's a little bit more creamier. Boom, boom, boom. So Majorel's ratio is 1 to 1.5, meaning 1 part color and 1.5 developer. Now, if you're confused, if your phone's not reachable, go ahead and grab the box. The box actually tells you right here to mix that 1 to 1.5 ratio. Like I said, we're just using 20 volume. We don't need to push the cuticle too much. We just need those two levels of lift. So if you notice, it is a little bit of a creamier consistency. Also, the technology of it, it now has a cover that it's not as smelly as normal permanent hair colors. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of back combing. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and skip a little bit of that underground area, but I will give her a little bit of just lightness on the bottom if she were ever to like pick up her hair. Now we're going to be doing a weaving technique where I kind of back comb a little bit. And we're not really going to go up to the scalp. The reason we're not going up to the scalp is just because that would give a little bit of heat to that, overexposing that pigment. So you will have what we call a hot root. Now you got to be very good at timing whenever you're mixing. You don't want your color to just be sitting there while you're doing all these things, or you're trying to aim. If you're pretty quick at foiling, this is awesome for you. But if you're taking your time and really sectioning those areas out, you want to go ahead and uh, do small batches of color versus you mixing larger quantities and it just be sitting there processing. We're going to backcomb just a little bit. Now, though the formula has been updated, it still has that really nice grip that your hair can stay on. And we're not going to go necessarily to that root area. We're just going to kind of feather it in as if it were bleach. Now she has pretty long hair. That's why I'm using foils, but it works exactly the same with if you want to do saran wrap. Just be cautious about getting more hair in there than you actually want it to. And I'm just feathering that in and placing that other foil on top. But in this case, you really don't need heat because that mozzarella line will commit to lifting that hair and depositing it. It is reliable and controlled. What I like about doing this technique too is that unlike bleach, you can walk away from it. On the back section, I really do like to put a little bit of ribbons there so that whenever she does get to curl her hair, it is you can visually see that contrast, those like really nice ribbons. Sometimes, and I'm doing diagonal sections, so once again, it's a more lived in look, meaning that she won't have that stripy line that maybe highlighting would do. This gives her more of a soft lift. And we really do have to kind of rethink what lightning really means. Like I was saying, we tend to jump to that lightener as soon as a client says, I want to be a little bit lighter. Conversation, that consultation, that really you get those key points. And in my key points at talking with Jennifer is that she was just big no on going back and using bleach. Now you have to remember you're just going about 1 inch to 2 inches away from that scalp. You don't want that heat to really expose those underlying pigments. Say it was human error. Human error as in you just went too high on that blend and it overexposed her pigments. You can do the same thing that you do with bleach and you can toner afterwards. Here's where I tell you that it gets kind of scary when they have so much hair. So I like to do ribbons. So this might look like a lot of hair, but if you see the density of her hair, you need that to break that up. And I like to do it in ribbons or those bigger sections so it can actually stand out whenever she does curl her hair. So if you see now that I put the foils, you can see those big ribbons. Now, it is important to backcomb. Jennifer asked me, like, why do you backcomb? And the reason I do the backcombing is it really breaks up that line. So that backcombing really kind of quiets down that line. Some area you do want the boldness of it, because once again, Jennifer does have a lot of hair. So I'm doing a larger section with ribbons, but once again, just back comb that a little bit. That little back comb that you do will do wonders for you. I always look at everything, like I said, microscopically. And so I know that Jennifer has fine hair, and you would think, well, she has fine hair, the color is going to go through perfectly. Well, no, I mean, that fine hair can also stick together. And if you superficially apply the color on it, those colors might, those hair strands might actually stay together and not allow the color to penetrate. That's not necessarily the color's fault, it's your saturation. The color will still do its thing, still deposit and lift at the same time. But if you don't saturate properly, that's when you get into trouble of it being a little bit uneven. So you want to be cautious about the heaviness of also your foils, kind of like a diagonal. Once again, that diagonal placement really diffuses also those lines. So now you're winning by diffusing it with backcombing, and you're also diffusing it by the application of those diagonal lines. A huge reason of why we use this technique versus like use permanent hair color as a lifting tool versus bleach is in cases like Jennifer, where she just had a really bad experience with bleach because she really didn't like how it made her hair feel. She also has a bit of fine hair, so she really thought like, hey, you know what? It's gonna start breaking, and then I'm gonna have like stringy hair. The cool thing about this, especially the Majorelle line, is that it really does lift and deposit without really expanding that cuticle so much as bleach does. Versus Majorelle, and its developer is just dissolving those those natural pigments, versus bleach will strip away the colors and won't replace them till you actually put a toner. Now, the reason I use Majorelle to lighten people's hair is because it actually does both. In there, it's actually doing everything as we're speaking. It's lifting the hair and it's also filling it up. Now, the colors of Majorelle, why that's important is that it's conditioning the hair at the same time. It's allowing those artificial pigments to be used as a conditioning agent, so that lift is not as harsh. And the reason we're only doing 20 volume is because you do have to trust the power of Majorelle. Since we're going at a level 7, she already has natural natural underlying pigment there. Now I just need to refine it. Instead of canceling it completely, I'm actually putting a third color in there, which is our yellow or our gold, which dilutes a little bit her her natural pigment, creating a tertiary colors. And now that's why I also put that natural in there, because the dependency or the reliability of Majorelle having those 3 other colors that I need, the blue, the red, the yellow, to make that brown, I already have that as a backup. So now I just need to mess a little bit with that underlying pigment. And yes, we always go complementary when it's time to highlighting, but here it just makes you think a little bit different, add a tertiary color versus going and just getting that complementary color and mudding her hair out. Lightness without it being super striking. So I'm doing a combination of very blended highlighting versus and some ribbon action. I want her crown area to be a little bit more in the darker side, because I don't want her to have very light pieces over here, and then when it grows out, you can see those lighter pieces going down and down, and you'll see a demarcation. I'll leave a panel of her natural hair color, and underneath it we'll see that lightness. Maybe it won't be so obvious when her hair is straight, but whenever she curls it or whenever she moves, we'll see that shininess underneath, making her look lighter. Now, if you want to to maybe go all the way to her root, you would just actually let this develop for a little bit, and kind of if you were doing a single process, you would, if you were lifting her all over, you would do 1 to 2 inches away from her root every single section, do her whole hair, and then come back and do her root area. It's the same thing for this. Remix a little bit of color so I can go into her front pieces. Like I said, we really can walk away from this. It's not going to overdevelop. It's not going to underdevelop. We can walk away from it instead of running. But if you just let it process what it's supposed to process, those 35 minutes, those 20 at that 25th minute all the way to that 35th minute is very crucial. It's where it seals it um, completely. Those cuticles were a little bit open. That color went in. It's processing and then it's sealing it back in. That really sealed down all those cuticles. You're looking at all these like mini mirrors becoming one, so you have more of like this uniform reflection. So if you see, I walked away from that, but the consistency of this color will let it stick to that surface. It already has a grown out effect. We're just creating a contrast. We're not really changing her whole entire hair color. We're just creating that contrast so whenever she does style her hair, she'll get those little ringlets, she'll get those little lighter pieces. Alrighty, we're done with Jennifer's application of the color. This is where I tell you that I need to trust the color. The process is gonna develop for 35 minutes. Like I said, those 25 to 35 minutes are very crucial. And pull the color and rinse it off until you're completely set. Unlike bleach, this really conditions the hair. Majorelle's color line really conditions the hair because once again, it lifts it and deposits it with those conditioning artificial colors and sealing that cuticle for you. So I'm going to put the timer up. Now that I finished everything, it's going to be 35 minutes. This is where you also have a really good conversation with your client. Jennifer already knows that she needs now a special shampoo using permanent hair color. It's not as damaging, but you need to reinforce that cuticle and really seal it. And it all starts with a shampoo. This is a good opportunity for you to really have a conversation and introduce a new product for your client, but really having a connection with your client of, hey, this is what I'm doing for you. This is what you have to do for yourself. And for yourself would be having a good shampoo. So I just want to show how subtle the dimension is, but it is still there. So if you see that blend, we can see that the hair lifted and we didn't have to insert any ashy tone because like I said, we diluted the underlying pigment. So I want you to see that that color right there and how well it blends with her natural, and still it brings out that shininess, that gold that we put. It's iridescent. So if you see I fold the hair, how glossy it can get, how shiny it can get, because all those cuticles are laying down thanks to that blow dry. See that shine through and through. We finally finished, and Jennifer was so happy. It was just the lightness that she needed. And I think as hairdressers, we need to redefine what lighter hair is, or not only redefine it, but find different venue or avenues for situations like Jennifer. So we came together and we redefined what lightness meant for her. And lightness was 2 levels up, a little subtle contrast, and she was really happy about it. The Majorelle line really helped me achieve this because not only does the new formula work a lot better when it comes to sliding it through the entire hair shaft, it's just very reliable on and true to the colors that it has. We went up to a level 7, and we get scared when it's a highlight. We get scared of those underlying pigments. The Majorelle line was very reliable on the fact that that 7N, I knew that that 7N had those 3 primary colors. I just had to think outside the box instead of canceling it. I'm like, how can I reinforce it with a tertiary color, diluting that orange and reformulating with that, and then putting that natural pigment in there. I love that I could predict. I could predict completely and be 100% correct. I hope this was a very cool tool or method for you to now have in your toolbox that you can use in future, and really just start thinking about what lightness really means and how you can achieve it, with A, B, or C, and this being one tool that you use. Oxidative lift, just using permanent hair color as a lifting tool. Hope you enjoyed it.